There we go. All right, we are live here on the show floor at ISE. Super exciting to be here. Is this our last podcast of the day?
Last podcast.
Last podcast of the day. They
Capping
saved
a
the
great
best for
first
last.
day, yep.
Yeah, best for last. So we are live here across from Pizza Lovers Restaurant on the show floor in Barcelona, Spain at ISE. There are so many people here. I mean, I've never been to an ISE that's more crowded, and I've been to some in Amsterdam, and I've been to some here. We want to welcome you. I'm Frank Buchholz. I'm going to host this session. I'm on the Surface commercial marketing team. It's super exciting for us to be here. Maybe we could just do a quick intro side. I'm going to ask Peter here, who is our engineer extraordinaire for Surface Hub. Maybe you want to introduce yourself.
Absolutely, thanks. I'm Peter Oehler. I'm the Surface Hub hardware leader.
And then David, why don't you give us an introduction?
Yep, David Alexander. I'm on the product management side for the user experience, the software experience on Surface Hub and Surface Hub 2S, and all flavors of Surface Hub, basically.
And then Michaela?
Great. I'm Michaela Byrne. I lead Surface Commercial Go-to-Market for Hub.
Awesome. So we're super excited to be here. We're calling this our Surface Hub 3 and Microsoft Teams Room Ask Me Anything. And so we're here to take any questions from passersby. I feel like we should just grab somebody out of the audience and bring them over here and make them ask us a question. Maybe that sounded a little too aggressive. So, one of the first questions that we always get is, hey, what's the difference between where you were with the Surface Hub running the team edition of Surface Hub 2S and essentially what we have now in the Surface Hub 3? And I'm actually going to, give this one over to Michaela. Like, what would you see in that regard of where we went from what we had with the Surface Hub 2S now with the Surface Hub 3 running Microsoft Teams rooms?
Happy to take this. And, I joined the Hub business a couple years ago. And so I've been part of this evolution, this recent stage of evolution. And coming into this business, it was clear that we had a very niche product that was effectively a Swiss Army knife. Surface Hub 2S could do many different things, but our partners and customers were giving us consistent feedback. With the emergence of Teams rooms, they were looking for an experience that was consistent. They were looking for an experience that was at parity with Teams rooms, and also ensuring that the roadmap that we were bringing to Teams rooms, we were bringing to Hub at the same time. Moreover, the management capabilities that were introduced in Teams rooms, our customers were looking for us to bring those to Hub as well. So bringing that streamlined experience to the Surface Hub 3 has been a huge step in our evolution. Not only do we have a more cohesive end-to-end experience, but also there's this opportunity in partnering with Teams for us to go and engage our customers and partners in a much more streamlined fashion, and something that as Microsoft we're trying to do all the time. Make it simpler to engage with us, make it simpler for the end user, and make it simpler for IT. That all of that is now realized with Surface Hub 3.
I mean, we use this tagline that Surface Hub represents the best of Microsoft. It's essentially this combination of hardware and firmware and operating system and application from Teams, as well as the management tools. And speaking of those management tools, so David, one of the things we bring is we bring these IT Pro tools and essentially the capability. And I know Michaela made reference to the management. And we have a lot of customers ask us, what is that differentiated side of being able to say that now I can manage this device in ways that I never was able to manage it before when it was running the Windows 10 Team Edition? And so maybe you can speak to that a little.
Yeah, so one of the hallmarks of this transition and one of the primary motivators was driving that consistency, not only between Surface Hub and other Microsoft Teams Rooms devices from the end user perspective, but also for the IT administrator perspective. What's really important about that is to give IT administrators a consistent platform for device management as well as the Teams experience management. And so leveraging not only the same portals for Teams management, like Teams Admin Center, as well as the new Pro Management portal, but also allowing IT admins to use the same Windows device management capabilities through things like Intune and device management capabilities that give them a consistent pane of glass for managing their other Windows devices, in addition now to Surface Hub as an MTR Windows device, giving them a familiar, consistent, and unified experience in a single pane of glass for all that. It really speaks volumes for driving efficiency for those IT admins. And by being on the Windows platform, we now have capabilities through some of these portals that Windows 10 Team Edition, our custom OS that Hub used to be on,
Right.
didn't necessarily have the ability to participate in. Things like taking advantage of the new support of MTR Windows for Windows Autopilot and Teams Rooms Auto Login, which greatly simplifies the deployment process and brings truly touchless deployment to Surface Hub for the first time ever, as well as things like remote management, remote monitoring, and also taking over and remotely accessing a Surface Hub device,
That's
actually
crazy.
troubleshoot and remediate issues on the Surface Hub from thousands of miles away. Actually, I don't mean to steal your thunder a little, Frank, but we've been meeting with a lot of customers and partners today, and one of the demos that Frank has been blowing everyone's minds with is from his device in the meeting room upstairs here at our booth. He's been remotely logging into and managing and configuring a Surface Hub that is back in Redmond. And so if you are a user in the room where that Surface Hub is, you see him remotely administering it and configuring the settings on it. And it is true remote management, which is very, very powerful. So that's a great example in addition to Autopilot.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's so cool that today we can actually take over essentially from a single pane of glass any Surface Hub device and actually see the type of problems that our customers are seeing in the field, or maybe it's logged out or some other piece. I'm going to dare to do something crazy right here. And I'm actually going to take this cable that's hopefully plugged into the back of my Surface Hub. It's not. So I'm just not going to do this demo from here right now. Maybe that was the network. But one of the things that we can actually do is we can actually take over and actually log into devices remotely from any pane of glass because of the new Pro Portal and its capability to do that. Now, one of the things that we also get asked is, how does Surface Hub differentiate itself from other products that are out there? Like, what is the compete story where we say there's a lot of other devices that we can purchase? But it would be interesting, and I have Peter here, and one of the pieces is that Peter and I both happen to have the legacy. He has much more time, but he worked at Perceptive Pixel, the company that Microsoft acquired in order to bring this best-in-class pen and touch display into Microsoft and build the Surface Hub product line from that. So, Peter, maybe you can tell us a little bit about that care and that perfection, essentially, that goes into the research that produces a best-in-class pen and touch display, how it incorporates things like palm rejection and multi-touch, multi-pen support, and maybe even more so, why having an active pen really actually tells a story towards adoption and use of the device.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Frank. That's a great question. The Surface Hub product itself, it's not a product that's easily sold by just looking at a spec sheet, but rather getting up and using it, getting in touch and experiencing the product, where you really have a chance to feel the fluidity of the interface, feel the fluidity of the pen, and allow the technology to recede and to merely have the conversation and the brainstorming and the collaboration. The technology is good enough that it no longer needs to be front and center. And that's how we know we made it. And we pursued that relentlessly for years to get to this point where we could stand shoulder to shoulder, each of us with the pen, and interact at the display. And we're not thinking about how the technology works. We're thinking about the conversation we're having. We're thinking about the collaboration, the human experience we're having. To me, that is the secret of the technology. It's that it goes away, and
Right.
the only thing left is the people using it.
But a lot of work went into that.
Totally.
So I want to transition to this other piece of people have interest in how they can take their current Surface Hub, which may be a Surface Hub 2S, and transform that into being a Surface Hub 3. And so maybe Michaela, maybe you can tell us the different options that our customers have, that allow them to maybe purchase or even upgrade their device that they currently have to turn it into a Surface Hub 3.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Frank mentioned, there's multiple ways that customers can get to the new experience, to Teams Rooms on Windows through Surface Hub. First off, you can buy Surface Hub 3. That comes with Teams Rooms on Windows.
I love that option.
For our
that one's
existing
easy.
customers, there's two paths. The first is with your existing Hub 2S, we've also launched the Surface Hub 3 Pack. That is a compute cartridge that comes with Teams Rooms on Windows. You can buy that Surface Hub 3 Pack as a standalone device, plug that into your to your existing Hub 2S, and with that, deploy Teams Rooms on Windows. When doing so, in addition to getting Teams Rooms on Windows, you also are enabling rotation, which we can come back to and spend a bit of time on. There's also an over-the-air migration option that's going to become available here in the coming very soon. I'll let my engineering counterpart speak to exact timeline, but that will also give customers the flexibility to make that change to the new software without having to purchase the pack. The pack is a great option though, because again, you get not just rotation and the new software, but also improved computing experience with faster RAM, memory. You have multiple ways to go about getting to Teams Rooms on Windows.
Yep. And what's important, particularly with that, is what customers have told us. Customers that have been on Surface Hub 2S for a while, they have a lot of conference rooms, collaboration spaces that have Surface Hub 2S devices in them. And now as they think about putting Surface Hub 3 devices in additional rooms, they want the same user experience, that same Microsoft Teams Rooms platform to be running on a hub that's in an existing space as well as their new hubs. And that's what both the Hub 3 Pack as an upgrade option for those existing devices, as well as the software migration capability for existing Hub 2S devices really allows. And so it gives customers flexibility on how they achieve that consistency. As Michaela said, our best recommendation will always be for a customer to upgrade by putting in the new cartridge, because they get all of the Hub 3 capabilities, the performance and graphics boost, as well as the hardware-based capabilities of Hub 3, like rotation and smart AV for the 50-inch device. But for those customers that want to, pilot, test out the experience, for example, or they're working through maybe budget constraints this year, they can't buy the cartridges, but they want to get that consistency in experience right away, they can do the migration now. Then maybe when they get budget next year, they can then buy the cartridges and get the hardware-based capability set. So there are a bunch of options depending on what the customer really wants to do to achieve that consistency.
Right.
And we've thought long and hard about how to make the software migration capability as seamless and easy for customers as possible. And so the way that works is actually we've issued a Windows update to all in-market Hub 2S devices that brings the migration capability to those hubs, but it doesn't actually initiate a migration or do anything to change the system until a customer chooses to initiate a migration. And the way they'll do that is with a custom migration launcher Windows Store application that either an admin can deploy locally on the device through the Windows Store, or they can remotely deploy that launching application via Intune to those select devices that they choose to migrate in whatever phased or staged or partial, then later full migration process may be. That will always be highly custom for what that organization wants to do for its migration plan.
Yeah.
And I love that ability to customize deeply the migration plan for an individual company. We're not forcing anybody to do anything they don't want to do. They get to do it at their own pace, and they get to do it in the way and the style that they want to. That to me is that's spectacular.
Yep. Yeah. It's the beauty of choice.
Yes.
Another topic that I always like to think about is the idea of thoughtful design. And, I think of that in the ways that you design the Surface Hub 2S. A couple that come into consideration is ideas that we now call smart AV or station rotation aware AV. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that, because, when you rotate that device, things move on the device, like the camera, the speakers, the microphones.
Totally.
And I'm wondering, when you designed that device, how did you take into consideration, the ideas of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the foundational ideas of the 50-inch device is that it's adaptable. It's adaptable for the situation that you happen to find yourself in at that moment. Not every interaction fits a conference room. Sometimes it's just the two of us. Sometimes it's all four. Sometimes it's a conference room. Sometimes it's a huddle room. Sometimes we have to take the device with us out to the manufacturing floor to have a conversation right there. In each one of those cases, you need a device that's configured in a slightly different way. So allowing the device the flexibility to move between simply portrait and landscape was a really good start. Sure. But just rotating between portrait and landscape leaves you with one of those orientations is not so optimized. It feels awkward ergonomically.
Right.
So we did two things to help address that. First thing we did was to build the panel in a slightly different form factor than normal. Instead of a normal TV that's very wide and not very tall, we decreased the width a little bit and increased the height a little bit. So we went to a different form factor at 3x2 instead of the traditional 16x9. Even with that, it wasn't quite enough to get the ergonomics quite right. So when we rotate, we actually move the display up about 100 millimeters to allow it to be positioned well for somebody tall like myself or somebody of slightly less height. We can all use the device comfortably, no matter what orientation it's in. And then as you rotate the device, of course, we would like the performance to remain the same, whether it's in portrait or landscape.
Right.
So that goes back to how we formulate the display to make sure the display works beautifully in any orientation and you can always see it. But then it flows through to things like audio. There are two sets of microphones on that device, so that depending on what orientation you're in, the microphones always work beautifully. There's two sets of stereo speakers in the device. So you've always got stereo audio and the subwoofer in the back to build you a beautiful sound field.
Sure does.
And it works automatically, seamlessly in the background for you.
No, I mean, that's just amazing. Just the considerations of design, those are things that they appeal to people when they start using it, but you had to have the foresight in order to build that in the first place.
It was a lot of prototypes.
Right. Yeah, and that's one of the values that Microsoft brings to that game is just the investments that we can make in order to make better products.
Totally.
It also speaks to the meticulousness that it actually is that level of sophistication that goes into helping the device and the technology fade into the background, like Peter was saying earlier,
Right.
that allows people to focus on the collaboration and the teamwork that they're doing on the device itself. You don't really realize how sophisticated it is when everything's working properly, but when you don't have this level of sophistication in a product, when you don't meticulously focus on these details like we do with Surface Hub, it starts to become noticeable. You start to see the audio breakdown if you don't have those two mic arrays.
Yep.
You start to see the awkwardness of just rotating on a central axis instead of changing the height to think about the ergonomics. And that's when actually the hardware then becomes distracting and you can't focus on it as well.
Right.
So actually by doing our jobs right, the sophistication actually fades into the background.
Sure.
And you can actually do better for your
Almost
collaboration.
works this act.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do one last round of questions. I'm going to ask each of you, of the questions that people have asked you in the last 6 months, which one do you want to make sure that we answer? And, maybe just putting you on the spot, but is there a question that you're often asked and you want to make sure people understand, what the answer would be to that? So maybe Michaela, I'm not sure if anything's coming to mind for you or anybody else on the panel, has a question that people have often asked them and you want to make sure we relay that out to the audience.
It's a great question. I mean, going through a product transition, there's lots of questions that come up. And I think the biggest one is, I want to make sure customers have confidence in our long-term vision for the product. With change comes a degree of uncertainty. We're human. That's part of that's our nature. But this is a very deliberate change that we made that was the direct reflection of what our customers and partners were telling us, and is consistent with the horizon for collaboration solutions on behalf of Microsoft all up. I want to make sure, leaving this conference, every customer that we talk to has that same conviction of the direction that we're heading and that we're committed to this business in the long run.
We're committed to it.
Committed.
There's no doubt.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
What about you, David?
I think for me, I often get asked by customers, why Hub? And especially now, why Hub as another Microsoft Teams Rooms device? What do we believe as Microsoft we can actually achieve by having a first party or Microsoft developed Microsoft Teams Rooms device? And simply put, we believe there is a vision that we can help the market achieve for collaboration and people having better collaborative meeting experiences that they may not even be realizing today that they're missing. We believe that by having an interactive version of Microsoft Teams Rooms and helping to elevate what meetings can actually be, it will help customers redefine what is possible with collaboration and really what collaboration means. I think if we've done our jobs right, in the future, a meeting that doesn't have an interactive whiteboard experience that gets people out of their chairs to
Copilot.
ideate, and AI
Copilot,
assisted
yeah.
collaboration and teamwork and brainstorming, people will start to see the traditional PowerPoint only, view only, one-way flow of information meeting as actually not as collaborative, frankly,
Right.
in the new world of what 2024 and beyond really means and what's possible with technology. And that, as Microsoft, is something that we believe we can help bring the whole market to achieve better together. It's not, as we were talking earlier, we were talking about compete devices and differentiation and all that. But at the end of the day, everyone does better when the whole market elevates what customers can achieve and what people trying to collaborate together can achieve. And that's what we believe the vision in North Star can really be, with Hub playing in this space.
Well, I think that goes back to why Surface came out as a product in the first place.
Yeah.
Surface is here to protect essentially the implementation of Windows. And we brought Surface to the market space because we didn't see great products at the time that represented what Windows was capable of doing.
Yeah.
So Surface brought a 2-in-1 tablet. It brought form factors that changed the way that we see. And now we see our OEM partners at Dell, Lenovo, HP, all making amazing PCs that have really brought the PC industry out. Now we're making essentially a first-party Microsoft Teams Room device to bring innovation, to bring Copilot, to bring AI capabilities, to bring all these different pieces. Whether you invest in Surface Hub or not, but our plan is to make the ecosystem better by providing our own inspiration and our own vision and how others can adapt to that as well. We've certainly seen that when Peter essentially built the first Surface Hub, how many other devices on this show floor have echoed essentially the follow-on beat of what the Surface Hub brought into the category? It's hard to deny that we placed that category out there at an ISE almost 8 years ago, and now you walk across this floor and you see so many different touch panels and other pieces thanks to that investment and innovation that Microsoft brought.
Yep.
So Peter, I'm going to end it with you. Is there a question that you've had asked you around the Surface Hub 3 that you want to make sure people understand?
Yeah, thanks, Frank. I go back to 2007 when Jeff Hahn first showed large interactive touch display. And in 2007, that was revolutionary. Like, a large screen I could touch.
iPhone wasn't even out.
iPhone wasn't even out then. And he had a clear vision that the way we interact with computing could change. And that could change the way we interact with each other. Surface Hub, our journey through PPI for the Projector Pixel first, and then through Surface Hub 1, through Surface Hub 2S, and now through Surface Hub 3, has been a journey of realizing Jeff's vision. And we continue to refine that, and we continue to innovate on that. And as David said, this new era of being able to bring Copilot together with MTR really changes the game, really changes the way we interact. And we are committed to continue our leadership in that space and continuing to innovate and work to bring more collaboration experiences and really elevate our game. We're committed to help us work together better.
Yeah, I actually have that video.
There he is.
Yeah,
yep.
So this was a TED Talk that Jeff did back in 2006 that really essentially brought this innovation of what is possible as to how humans interact with technology. And this was a spur of where we've come to today to bring this product to market.
Totally.
How we think of Microsoft as bringing innovation, but also across that board. So want to see if there's any questions out there, that if anybody wants to ask a question, it's an Ask Me Anything. We certainly want to open it up. We'll give anybody an opportunity. But if not, I think we're going to say that this has been hopefully a productive session. I've certainly enjoyed having these experts at this panel. And we want to say thank you so much for joining us. And we'll be back tomorrow with more podcasts and day 2 of ISE here in Barcelona, Spain. So bye for now.
Bye.